there were no early self-inflicted wounds like we saw against Duke, like we saw against Charleston Southern. Clemson did not turn the ball over all night long. They won the turnover margin. I think they had lost the turnover margin in 7 of their last 9 games coming in, or something like that. I can't remember what it was specifically. So that's good to see because turnovers have been plaguing this team, killing this team. So it's good to see them protecting the ball better, although there could have been a couple. I mean, Cade Klubnik's a guy that's going to take chances. There was one that could have easily been picked off in return for a touchdown, and the guy just couldn't reel it in. And there's probably another one late that probably should have been intercepted. But I like the way he responded. He comes right back on 3rd down and makes a throw to Tyler Brown that not a ton of quarterbacks can make over to the opposite hash. I mean, it was a beautifully thrown ball. Like what I saw out of him this week. I thought in the first half against Charleston Southern, he was locking on to guys, not scanning the field, and really didn't settle in after halftime. This week, I thought he came out ready to roll, settled in. He was scanning the field, hit a bunch of different receivers, caught passes. He wasn't just looking for Antonio Williams or Bo Collins, spreading it around. So I like this. I like the steps forward that the passing game has taken over the past 2 weeks. But again, it's against Florida Atlantic. You know, I just don't know if it means anything. We're fixing to find out. Fixing to find out.
Any injuries to report? Anything going on there?
Cole Turner was injured in the game. He has 3 torn. Let me make sure I get this right. He is out for the year. He tore something that I had never even heard of before, so I got to make sure I get it right here. 3 torn abductor muscles, maybe. I think that's what it was, abductor muscles. So again, I never heard of it before, and when he did it, I thought he had turned the ankle or something. But he's out for the year. And the other one is Andrew Makuba, who has been out the past 2 weeks. Dabo keeps saying he's day-to-day. I'm kind of hearing a little different. I'm hearing there is a distinct possibility he will not play Saturday. They don't know yet. On the flip side of that, freshman Khalil Barnes filled in for him admirably Saturday. I mean, he played lights out. I wish I had his numbers right in front of me, but he killed. He had an interception. He forced a fumble, tackle for loss. He looked remarkable. He did not look like a freshman at all. So if Makuba can't play, you got to feel good about, Barnes. Other than that, healthy. We've not been able to say that a lot about this Clemson team.
All right. Before we dive into this Florida State game coming up this Saturday and what the Seminoles were challenged with this past Saturday, Will Shipley's a guy that scored 15 touchdowns last year. He scored 11 the year before. He's used to finding the end zone. He has yet to score a rushing touchdown this season. They've played 3 games. So this is game 3. It's FAU. It's a 34-0 game. And a lot was made of an incident on the sideline in which Will Shipley was given the ball, did not score. They eventually took him out. They scored on a touchdown or I even want to correct myself there. I don't know that they took him out or if this was the exchange on the sideline after they scored the touchdown on the sneak by Cade Klubnik. So I want to get that correct. And then there's an exchange between CJ Spiller and Will Shipley on the sideline because Will Shipley was obviously wanting the football again. And then there was a little confrontation on the sideline. And then there was a ton made by Clemson fans and college football fans about Will Shipley arguing with his coach, pouting, whatever it appeared to be on the sideline. I saw the replay. Didn't watch the game, but saw that series of plays and then the exchange on the sideline. My conclusion is that the guy's a great player. He's a baller. He's a gamer. He loves this university, loves this team, loves his teammates. And he is like the epitome of what you want on your football team. And if you've got a track record like Will Shipley, maybe his response wasn't the best, but My goodness, let's have a little grace.
Yeah, let me preface this by saying, I'm not defending or excusing anything Will Shipley did. I don't think you should probably refrain from getting in a coach's face, especially on the sideline. It's not the best look. Now, having said that, anybody that follows Clemson closely knows we're talking about a fiery dude. I mean, he is extremely emotional on the field, and I think that is something this Clemson team needs at times because they lacked fire, in my opinion, on offense and defense. Not that he plays defense, but they've lacked fire, and he's been that leader since he got to campus. I mean, they praised his leadership abilities as a freshman. He's been that guy in the locker room, going on. This is his third year now. And I don't know what they were. I don't know what he was hot about, but he was hot about something. And I am pretty sure that he stayed on the field. He was still out there when Columbus scored. 99.9% sure, anyways. But I mean, whatever it was, take it to the sideline. Maybe wait till you're not as emotional. But I just think this is much ado about nothing. I just don't think it's that big a deal. Football players are emotional. You want them to play with their emotions on their sleeves sometimes. What was he pouting on the sideline? I don't know. He had a towel on his head for a minute. Quickly after that, he had his helmet back in his hand. He was back on the field. He even played the first. He was even back on the field for a play or two, the first offensive series of the third quarter. So he didn't get benched or anything. After the game, Dabo Swinney got asked about it. He didn't even know it had happened. So, I mean, it must not have been that big a deal on the sideline for nobody to have even told Dabo Swinney. And, he didn't seem too worried about it. He said, I'm sure, I know CJ will handle that. Referring to CJ Spiller, he's the running backs coach. So, again, it's always a bad look from an optics perspective, but I just think it's much ado about nothing. I told you before we jumped on here, I saw so many Clemson fans calling Will Shipley overrated Saturday night, Sunday morning. Never saw anybody call him that before this, but I have seen tons call him that since. And I'm not sure how like we talked about, I'm not sure how you go from that to overrated. I think he's a pretty dang running back. Is he explosive and does he got that elite level speed? No. I mean, he gets run down from behind sometimes, but he is a solid running back that is going to, on average, get you 5, 6, 7 yards per carry, and that's pretty dang productive in my eyes.
Yeah, I don't know the connection between his playing ability and the evaluation of his playing ability and the way he acted on the sideline, what those two have to do with one another. And then also understand that while sports is a great thing for young people to be involved in because it teaches discipline, teamwork, all those things, poise, and so forth, we do ask these football players to do something that's kind of unreasonable. We expect them between the whistles to act violently and then emotionally and just throw this energy at somebody else and then to shut it off, be completely poised, and then the next snap to do the same thing and do this over and over and over. And that's what we ask them to do. And that's what they should do. They shouldn't be, acting like fools between the plays, but we are asking quite a bit that even a guy of my age would find it difficult to compartmentalize my emotions that well for 3.5 hours every week.
Yeah, you nailed it. We want them to be emotional, between the whistles. And then when the whistle blows, cut it off just like that, and it doesn't always work like that. Like you said, we're all human, and sometimes it's hard to shut those things off. He had gotten, Clemson had the ball on the one. He had been given the ball twice and failed to get in. Nobody knows what was said, just that they seemed to be yelling at each other. Nobody knows exactly what was said. I don't, anyways. I've not heard anybody knows what was said. So I mean, how disrespectful was what he said? I had no idea. I mean, as far as I know, all he did was raise his voice. But you could tell he was a little frustrated about something, whether it was not getting in from the one, whether it was with his blocking up front or not getting the ball the third time in a row. Because he's a guy that wants the ball, man. He wants the ball. It is who he is, and I think that's I think that's who you want as the leader on your offense. You want a leader who wants the ball.
Jason Priester's here, allclemsontigers.com. Get on over there, check out Jason's work. We appreciate Jason being here every week to talk Clemson football with us. And of course, the huge matchup against Florida State. Is it a rivalry? Is it not a rivalry? We're not going to discuss that now. We got all off season to do that. But I know a lot of Clemson and Florida State people that say this is a great rivalry, and other people say it's not a rivalry. They're just good. And so they run into each other. And so it's not a rivalry. They're just in the same conference and they're both good. And these two have obviously traded spots throughout the years, and they've owned this conference since going back to like 2012. It's been all Florida State and Clemson, aside from Pitt jumping up one year and gaining the conference championship. So here we go. This was a non-factor of a game for about 5 years. And now Florida State's gotten better. And they gave them a game 2 years ago in Death Valley. And then last year, Clemson controlled the game, but still it was pretty close when Florida State made a run at them late. And now Florida State appears to be the best team. But here we go again with college football being what it is. Who in the world expected? And so I completely ignored this game until about 6 or 7 minutes left. And all of a sudden I wanted to know what was going on in Chestnut Hill because Florida State was struggling. And if Boston College doesn't chalk up 18 penalties, and this is what I hate, and it's not the officials' fault. They have to make the call. It's a game where everybody's riding on the edge of their seat across the nation. Can BC pull off this incredible upset that nobody forecasted in any such way? Shoot, they couldn't even barely beat Holy Cross in Northern Illinois. And a face mask ends the game. Like we all want, regardless of who you're rooting for, unless you're a Florida State fan, of course. But if you're just wanting to see a dramatic finish, you want BC to get the punt. They stopped them. You want them to get the punt and see if they can drive for a field goal to win the game. And it's just anticlimactic when the penalty ends the game and BC doesn't even get a chance after they got the defensive stop. But whether that's meaningful, we'll find out. But Florida State certainly didn't look like what a lot of people thought after week one, the best team in the country this past week.
I think I probably told you after week one. I think Florida State's good, but I was saying let's pump the brakes on them being a top 5, top 3 team. I want to see more. And they struggled with Boston College. Were they maybe looking ahead to next week a little bit? Possibly. It was a noon game on the road. Sometimes we see the road teams get off to slow starts. Sometimes under those circumstances, and Florida State got off to a slow start and rebounded, went up 31-10. And next thing you know, they've made a couple of mistakes and allowed Boston College to get back in that thing. One of them was a scoop and score, and Boston College is right there within reach of winning that game. Again, I don't know if that was maybe a little bit of Florida State looking ahead, or if maybe that's just, maybe they're not the top 5 team they're being made out to be by everybody. But if we go strictly by what we watched, there's some weaknesses there. Boston College was able to expose some things. Boston College's quarterback in particular. So we'll see if Clemson can put a game plan together that can expose some weak spots on that defense. I think the secondary has been questionable to play in the secondary for Florida State going back to the LSU game. So I think there will be some opportunities in the passing game. The question is, does Clemson have the receivers to make that happen? We've not seen it yet outside of Charleston Southern and Florida Atlantic, and they are a far cry from what Florida State's going to be. I also want to see this Clemson running game against that defensive line of Florida State. I forget how many rushing yards Boston College had in that game the other day. More than I thought they would have had going in. Because that defensive line for Florida State, it was stout against LSU. It was really good. Maybe not quite so good against Boston College. Part of me wants to think they, just kind of got caught looking ahead a little bit. But we'll find out for sure Saturday. But this is a huge game for Clemson and Dabo Swinney's program, man. Huge. Probably one of the biggest we've seen in quite some time. in my opinion.
We've got the point spread, folks, on the banner right there. It's in Death Valley, and Clemson's a 1.5 point underdog. Get this one, Jason. I just checked this. Ohio State can't say this. Georgia can't say this. And I'm guessing Alabama can't say this, although maybe. Clemson has not been an underdog. So for the last 5 years of regular season games, they've not ever been an underdog. Zero. Even when they played Georgia in 2021, they were a 3-point favorite. They've never been an underdog. And I bet they haven't been an underdog in a regular season game since probably Florida State 2014.
2016.
2016, they were an underdog because it was
Louisville,
on the road.
Lamar Jackson, and
Oh,
Louisville.
really?
Clemson was a 1-point underdog. That's what I have here. Somebody sent me this morning. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times under Dabo Swinney, they have been underdogs at home. 2016 to Louisville, 2013 Florida State, 2013 Georgia, 2010 South Carolina, 2010 Miami, 2008 Georgia Tech. And the biggest was Florida State, 2013. Clemson was a 4.5 point underdog. Those are home games now.
Yeah. Okay. These are all games in the last 5 years I've got right in front of me. Never been an underdog in the regular season. Last time they were an underdog was the national championship game against LSU. And again, I got to think 2014. So they must have went to Tallahassee in 2014. They were probably an underdog in that game. I'm guessing that's the last time they were an underdog. Well, you're telling me the 2016 Louisville game, which I don't know what Vegas was doing there, but it was a really close game.
And it was only this. I don't know what service this is from. Somebody sent it to me this morning because we were talking about when the last time Clemson was an underdog at home. So somebody sent me every time Clemson's been an underdog at home under Dabo, and it was only a 1-point spread. So what one service had, it might have been a little bit different somewhere else. It might have been a pick 'em somewhere else. So go either way on that one. Kind of like 2015 Notre Dame, the Hurricane game.
Yeah.
Opened up, Notre Dame was a 2.5 point favorite, if I'm not mistaken. By the time the game rolled around, it was a pick 'em.
But yeah, at least for the last 5 years, at least the last 6 years, if you go to 20. So we're talking like 75 games. They have not been an underdog except for that championship game against LSU. Wow.
Dabo likes to play up the underdog card, right? We're a little old Clemson, right? And he has not been able to really do that the way he used to be able to do it. Because, during the first half of his tenure, you could buy into some of that. But it has kind of felt like, over the past few years since they went on this run, that some of it kind of felt manufactured, and he was trying to push some buttons and not sure how that message was being received. But now they are going to be the underdog this week. He can really truthfully and meaningfully push that narrative and try, and use that as one of the ways to motivate this team. Not only are they underdogs, they're underdogs at home. And that's just something we've rarely seen under Dabo Swinney. So it's going to be interesting to see how this team comes out. Again, a noon kickoff. You never know with these with noon kickoffs at Clemson. You can have a dead crowd. You can have a raucous crowd. It just depends. I remember Syracuse, Trevor Lawrence's first start, noon kickoff at Clemson. It was one of the loudest times I ever heard it. And that rarely happens for a noon game. I expect it'll be raucous this weekend, especially after Florida State's close call this past weekend. Some of these Clemson fans are thinking, maybe they're a little bit more vulnerable than they've been led to believe. And not to mention Jordan Travis got hurt in that game too. Had to come out and went back in. Who knows how fully healthy that shoulder will be.
The one thing that stands out watching Florida State play LSU was that they really exposed the LSU secondary. If there's a reasonable pass rush for Clemson, do you think their secondary can hold up against Florida State's wide receivers?
That is going to be one of my 5 storylines to follow when I write this thing up later in the week. And it might be the number one on the list because Florida State has some dudes at wide receiver, some dynamic playmakers, Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. And we're talking about Johnny Wilson, 6'7". I mean, I don't care who you are. That's going to be tough to cover. I feel like Clemson's got some guys that can that can cover. Nate Wiggins has been really good since his bad showing against Wake Forest last year. I think he could potentially be a first-round pick in the next draft. We'll see. I think he's got that kind of potential. But on the other side over there, you got Sheridan Jones and Jaden Lucas is the third corner. Sheridan Jones worries me a little bit. He's a 6-year guy. He's experienced. He's been around a long time, but he's wily. He's a veteran. Maybe not quite as talented as Nate Wiggins or, say, the younger Jaden Lucas, who is just in his second year now, didn't play much last year at all. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. How Clemson can cover on the back end against those guys. And I think it's imperative that you pressure. You can't let Jordan Travis get comfortable back there. You got to put pressure on him. And Clemson's had a little bit of issues when they do get pressure this year. They've not been able to finish. Guys are getting out of the pocket. Riley Leonard killed him. That long touchdown run that Clemson had him in the grasp, and he gets away and goes and scores. When they get to him, they got to be able to finish. They can't let him get comfortable. And when he does have a clean pocket, Clemson's secondary is going to have to cover. It's going to be a great test. The pass defense is the one area on defense Dabo Swinney said in the offseason needed to improve significantly. We're fixing to find out if it did.
This is the one everyone has waited for in the ACC. It's Clemson hosting Florida State. Check out Jason's work throughout the week, tracking Clemson football. Jason, we appreciate it. Enjoy the game on Saturday.
Yes, sir, man. My pleasure. Anytime.